In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a DMB MasterNode on a Linux VPS with a local cold wallet. In this setup, you're actually going to be creating two wallets. The first wallet we're going to set up is your local wallet, and that's going to store your coins, and that's where you're going to control your MasterNode. And that is considered a cold wallet in this setup because that local wallet does not need to be connected to the internet the entire time to gain MasterNode rewards. So it's cold in the sense that it does not have to be connected to the internet. Your Linux VPS wallet will be connected 24/7 because you're going to be renting a machine up in the cloud, and that's going to be running your MasterNode daemon, which is sort of the back-end process for your MasterNode. And that will be running 24/7, and it's always going to be collecting MasterNode rewards. And it's connected to the internet, so it's considered a hot wallet. But your coins will not be on that wallet. That wallet up on the VPS will only be running sort of the back-end process and collecting rewards, and it will send those rewards to your local wallet. The reason this is sort of the best setup is that the VPS wallet is running and it's advertising its IP address. To run a MasterNode, you have to tell the network your IP address. So what it's doing is it's advertising that address. So if somebody wanted to come and say hack on to your VPS server, they know the IP address. We're going to set it up so they can't get onto that. But if they did, it doesn't matter because you're not going to actually store your coins on that wallet. You're just going to be running sort of the back-end process and collecting rewards, but the rewards will be sent to your local wallet, and no one knows where your local wallet is. So this is really the safest setup. So that's sort of an idea of what we're going to do. So let's move on to getting it all set up. So the first step here is to install the local wallet. And down in the comments section of this video, I'm going to give you all these links here. But to get the wallet, you're going to go out to the DMB GitHub site, and that's where we're going to get our wallets. And in this video, I'm going to be installing a Windows local wallet, so I'm going to go for the Windows file here, and I'm just going to save this zip file onto my desktop just so it's easy for me to get to, but you can save it wherever is most comfortable for you. Okay, so now I have the zip file here on my desktop. I'm going to extract this to a I'm not going to extract it on the desktop. What I like to do with my wallets is I like to put them with the rest of my programs on my computer. You could install this wherever you want, and you could even install it here on the desktop if you want, but my kids frequently get on my computer and they mess with the stuff on my desktop, so I don't like to store anything important on my desktop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install this with the rest of my programs on my computer. And these wallets are really just executables, and they don't have an installer process in the normal sense that you're probably used to. So the installation process is really just putting the executable in a certain location. So I'm going to extract them to my just programs directory on my computer. So just C drive program files. And in there, I'm going to create a new folder for this. And that's where I'm going to extract my executable. And I'm going to leave this checked, that way it brings up the folder as soon as it's done extracting. Now that it's done extracting, you can see I have my executable here. And I'm done with this zip file that's out on my desktop. I'm just going to get rid of it to keep it clean. So now I can run the executable, and that's running the wallet. But what I like to do also is send a shortcut. So if you right click it, go send to desktop, it creates a shortcut on the desktop. And now what I can do is I can put this shortcut wherever I want. I can put it here in my programs area, or I can just leave it on the desktop. And that's what I do, is I just leave it on the desktop. If my kids go and delete it, it doesn't bother me because I can just recreate this. So now to run it, you can just right click it and say open, or you can double click it, however you like to do that. And the first time your wallet boots up, you may see a message asking you if you want to allow the wallet to go through the firewall. If you see that message, just say yes, you want to allow the traffic through your firewall. So what it's doing now is the first time it opens, it wants to synchronize with the network. So that's sort of this message down here. And before you start using this wallet sort of long term, or before you start sending coins, receiving coins, all that type of stuff, you want to wait till this synchronizes. But what we're going to do right now while we're waiting for that is we're going to set up a couple addresses. So I'm going to go to my receive tab here. And in here, I just installed this wallet, so I got one address already. And this address has no label. And a label is just a friendly name you give to your addresses. No one else can see what this label is. This is private to your wallet, so if you give someone this address, they don't know what you've labeled that. So I like to just create first an address called collecting. So I'm going to edit that label. I'm just going to call it collecting. And what I'm going to do on that address is collect my coins before I set up my MasterNode. When you're ready to set up your MasterNode, you don't really want to be having all kinds of coins on your MasterNode collateral address, which is the address you're going to put your collateral to run your MasterNode. So I like to just get everything ready in one single address, and then I create a new address in here for my MasterNode. And I'm just going to call it MN1. And so when I'm ready to set up my MasterNode, I will send the coins from that collecting address over to my MasterNode collateral address. And I like to just do that just to keep things clean. So now I have two addresses. The first one is where I'm going to go get coins, say on an exchange, or buy them from somewhere, or get them from somewhere, or mine them. Wherever I'm getting them from, I'm going to collect them all on this address. And then when I have the proper coins, or the proper amount of coins, then I will send them to my MasterNode collateral address. And I'm going to do that in a later step. But for now, this is the address I'm going to use to collect all my coins. So now we have two addresses here. The next step you want to do before you start using this wallet for anything is you want to make sure you can encrypt the wallet and decrypt the wallet. Because the last thing you want is to get a bunch of coins on this wallet and forget that you hadn't encrypted it. And then you go and encrypt it, and then you have some sort of problem, like you wrote down the password wrong or something, you couldn't decrypt it, then your coins are stuck. So I like to encrypt it and then verify that I can actually decrypt that wallet or unlock it before I start using the wallet. So what we want to do to encrypt it is you go to settings, encrypt wallet, and then you're going to create a password or a passphrase. You're going to want to do something complex. I'm going to put something very simple in here, but you don't want to do that. You want to have a nice complex password. What this password does is it allows you to lock the wallet here on your local machine. So if somebody jumped on your machine at your house and they saw they had this wallet running, they could send coins to anywhere they want. They could even send them to a garbage address and the coins would just disappear into nothing if you didn't have it locked. So what this does is you can put a password on it. So if they try to send coins, they have to know that password to send them. But what it also does is it encrypts your backup copies of your wallet. So if you're making backups of your wallet and you're storing them on, say, like a thumb drive, and you lose that thumb drive somewhere, if somebody picked it up and found it and they saw that those wallet backups were on there, they could load up your backups and take all your coins. But what this password does is it password protects that wallet. So if they did load it up and they don't have that password, they can't get to your coins anyway. So that's the benefit of adding this encryption to this wallet. So I'm going to add this password. I'm going to hit OK. It says, are you sure you really want to do this? Make sure you remember what this password is. So make sure you write down what that password is. And then it says, okay, it's going to close. So it's going to close the wallet. Give it a few seconds. Whenever these wallets close, you always want to let them have a few seconds to finish up any cleanup activities. Sometimes what they like to do is close down. There's little database files and stuff, and it needs to close them down and clean them up. So give them a few seconds after you close it before you try to restart the wallet. So now I'll just open it back up. And now you see this icon has changed to encrypted and locked. So what that means is now my wallet is encrypted, meaning it has a password, but it's also locked. And those are two different things. Encryption and locked they're very similar things, but they're different. Encrypted means you have a password on it. Locked means you've locked that wallet, and the only way to unlock it is to use your password. So encryption just means you have a password. Locked, unlocked is what you do with that password. So right now it is locked, and obviously it means it's also encrypted. So I want to try to unlock the wallet. Just to make sure I have my password written down correctly. And now you see that icon has changed. It's still encrypted, meaning there is a password on it, but it's unlocked, meaning now I have it unlocked, and I have successfully unlocked the wallet, which means I feel safe now to use this wallet and to send coins to it, because now I know that I can get the coins back off of it. And you also notice that that synchronization message down there has finished. That means it's all synchronized. If you hover over this check mark, you can double check that. It says it's up to date, and it tells you which block number you're on. So now we got a pretty good wallet here. We have it encrypted, we have it synced, and that tells me this is a great wallet and we can start using this. But before we start using it, we always want to make a backup. So to make a backup of this wallet, you go to File, Backup Wallet, and then choose a location. I'm just going to throw it on the desktop right now. And what I like to do is name my wallets with the coin name and then like a date. So let's go for coin name, date, and then I put wallet.dat. That way I know it's a wallet.dat file. If you change the name of this, you don't really know what this file is. And I like to put the coin name in there because every coin you have, it's always going to be called wallet.dat. So that's sort of the methodology I use with my backups. You can use whatever you want, but we'll save it on the desktop, hit save, and then you see it has created now that backup. So what you want to do with this backup now is store it on a different computer or a different, you don't want to just store all your backups on this computer, because if this computer goes down, you lose your main wallet and you lose all your backups. So store this off somewhere on another computer, on a thumb drive, something like that. But make sure if you're storing that on, say, a thumb drive, you don't store the password on a piece of paper in the same location. So what I do with all mine is I put them on thumb drives and I throw them in a safe, but I don't keep the passwords in that same safe. I will keep them somewhere else, because you know, if somebody steals your safe and they get to your thumb drives and your passwords are all written on a piece of paper in there, then you've sort of defeated the purpose of that encryption. So now we got the wallet, we got a backup, we are good to go. What I need to do now is go get some coins. So I'm going to collect my coins, and to collect my coins I need to get my address where I'm going to collect them on. So I go to my receiving and I right click this one, and then I copy that address, and then I give that address to wherever I'm getting the coins from. So if I'm on an exchange, I will withdraw them. So I will, copy this address, paste it into that exchange and say send my coins here, or if I'm getting them from someone, I'll give them that address. And what I'm going to do now is move on to the next step and go get those coins, and I'll be back in a second. Alright, I am back, and you can see now that I have some coins on my collecting address. And what I need to do now is create what is called a collateral transaction. And that is sending your collateral coins to your collateral address. So my collateral address I created is this MN1. So I'm going to copy that address. I'm going to go to the send tab, and this is where I'm going to send it. And one thing I notice here is that I don't have coin control enabled. I like to have coin control enabled, and what I'm going to do to do that, it gives you a little bit more visibility into what actually you're doing. So go into settings, go to options, display, and then enable or display the coin control features. This says experts only, but you're going to be an expert here in a second. So once you've done that, now you see there's a new button here under coin control features. If you click that button, it will show you all of your inputs, and each input is basically a chunk of coins on an address. Right now I only have, if you can go to tree mode, you can list all the inputs of an address, or if you go to list mode, it shows all inputs. It's not very useful right now because I only have 1, input on one address, and it doesn't really make sense. But what you do in here is you can choose which coins you're going to be sending in this transaction. So right now I really only have one, so I'm just going to select that one. But if you had a bunch of different inputs and you didn't want to break them for staking or something like that, you would choose the ones you want to use to send in that transaction. That sort of is an advanced feature, but this is a good look into this. And if you want to get more info on this is called coin control. Just do a search on the internet for coin control and maybe staking, and it'll give you a lot more information on sort of how to do staking and how to do proper coin control. But right now I'm selecting the coins on my collecting address, and that's going to be the coins I'm going to use to send to my collateral address. So you can see I have 100,001 coins, and the reason I did that, and you're going to want to send yourself, when you go out to if you're on an exchange or something buying these coins or getting them from someone, you want to have a little bit more than the exact amount of the collateral. So if the collateral in this case is 100,000 coins, you want to get 100,000 say in one coin, because you need a little bit more coins to do your transaction fees. So you see there is a transaction fee here involved with whenever you send coins between addresses. So I'm sending coin from my collecting address to my MasterNode collateral address, and the act of sending those, it's going to charge me a transaction fee. So if on my collecting address I only had 100,000 coins, when I tried to send them here to my collateral address, I would not have 100,000 anymore. I have 999,000.99999 or something like that. So you always want to get an extra coin so you can start sending coins around and doing transactions. So you always want a little bit extra, and that's why I chose 100,001. But when I send them to my collateral address for my collateral transaction, which is what I'm doing right now, is I want to send the exact amount to my collateral address. So I want to send 100,000 coins to my collateral address, and this will be what is called my collateral transaction. It's basically just sending the coins to your collateral address in one single transaction for the exact amount. If you tried to do this in two transactions, it wouldn't work. If you tried to send yourself a little bit more, say 100,001 or 100,000.5, it wouldn't work. Or 150,000, it wouldn't work. You have to send exactly 100,000, and it has to be in one single transaction. So this is what I'm doing. I'm creating that collateral transaction. So I'm sending to my collateral address the 100,000 collateral coins, and everything looks good here. So I'm going to hit send. And now it's just warning me, hey, we're going to charge you a 0.00001 transaction fee. That's perfectly fine. I accept that. And now you can see that I have finished that transaction. If we go to our transactions tab, we can see what was happening. So the first transaction we see here is when I received, that's when I sent coins to my collecting address. I sent the 100,001 coins. And then you see this is the actual transaction we just did, that collateral transaction. It looks a little bit goofy here on the amount, because what this amount column shows on this tab is the coins that came into your wallet or left your wallet. And in this case, I sent the coins between two addresses inside my wallet. So the only coins that left my wallet was that transaction fee. So that's why this amount kind of looks weird. But to see that this transaction is that collateral transaction, you can double click that. And what you can see is I did send 100,000 coins. And then this is your transaction ID, and that's the sort of the collateral transaction. So that will be important in a later step, but you don't need to grab it from here. I'll show you a different way to grab it. But that's what you can see is this is our collateral transaction. We're going to install a program called Putty. Putty is the program we're going to use to communicate with our VPS and set it up. So what you'll want to do is go to this website, putty.org. And we're going to download the application. Click this download Putty here. And then I'm running a Windows 64-bit, so I'm going to choose that. And I'm just going to hit the run. And then I'm going to step through this installation. Just everything is default is what we want. Don't need to use README. And just hit finish. So now we have Putty installed. And before we connect to our VPS, we're going to want to create an RSA key. And the RSA key will be used to communicate with our VPS server in a secure way. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to create a public and private key pair for your computer to connect to your VPS. And you're going to set it up so the only person that can connect to that VPS is somebody with the private key. So that way you can protect your VPS from anyone connecting to it. And the only person that can connect to it is you, because you should be the only person with that private key. So to create this RSA key, we just go to the Putty installation folder, and we want to choose this program that Putty installed called PuttyGen. And this is how you generate RSA keys. So the first step is to click Generate, and then you move your mouse around until this status bar here is filled up. You're creating just random movements of your mouse. That way the key that's created is unique to your situation. Alright, so now we have this RSA key. This is the public key we will use. And we need to save this public key and our private key into a location. So I'm going to save them here on the desktop. But before I save them, I'm going to do an extra level of security, and I'm going to put a passphrase onto my private key. That way if anyone gets access to my private key, they still can't get onto my VPS unless they know my password. So I'm going to create a very simple password, but you don't want to create a simple one. You want to create a complex one. And you're going to also want to remember that, because that will be the only way you can connect to your VPS. The one good thing about this setup is the VPS doesn't actually contain any coins in this setup. The VPS is just running the MasterNode. So if you lose access to this private key or this password on your private key, it's not the end of the world. You'll have to recreate your MasterNode on the VPS, but you won't lose your coins. Your coins are only going to be located in your local Windows wallet. So now I got a passphrase here. I'm going to save off this public key. Just save it onto the desktop. And I'm just going to give it a super simple name. What you'll want to do is create a real name with the coin name in it, and my suggestion is you create one of these RSA keys for every coin in every VPS instance. So say if you had 3 masternodes of the same coin, you're going to want to label each of these keys differently and create a separate key for each masternode instance. And that way if somebody does get access to one of your keys or somehow hacks into it, not all of your masternodes are at risk. So I suggest you create a separate one for each coin and masternode. So I'm just going to create it pub key, or call it pub key, but you can call it something with the coin name and maybe a date, whichever you want. So now we have the public key. Now we're going to save the private key. Just do the same thing onto the desktop. I'm just going to call it private key. So now we have the public and the private key, and this is saved off so we can get access to it later. You'll want to store these in a permanent location also, not here on the desktop, so save them somewhere where you remember where they're at, because you will need them when we set up Putty later, or you'll at least need the private key. So I'm going to leave this PuttyGen window open, because we will use this in a minute when we connect to our VPS. You don't have to use it, but I like to use it because I have this key already set up. This is a key I'm going to enter when we get to that VPS setup step. So right now, I'm just going to move on to the next step, and we're going to leave this here. So now we are ready to start up our VPS server and get that all set up. And the place I'm going to show you to use, you can use anywhere you want to get your VPS servers, but the place I like to use is called Vultr. And down in the comments there is a referral link here, so if you use the referral link, you will get, I believe it's $10, I'm not positive on that, but you'll get $10 credit, and I'll get something, I might get a $10 credit, I'm not sure on that either. But if you have a friend that has a Vultr referral link, use your friends, or if you don't, use mine, or if you want to go somewhere else, go somewhere else. It's totally up to you. But that link is down there if you want to use it. So I'm going to set up my VPS, and I'm just going to log into my Vultr server since I already have an account there. But if this is the first time you're setting up Vultr, the first thing you want to do is go into the billing tab and then set up a billing method, because they require you to deposit money with them before you start loading up servers. Because you're paying for these servers by the hour, that's sort of how they have their billing. So you go to the billing tab, you set up a credit card or something, and you add, say, $10 to them, and then you have a $10 credit to use. And I believe if you're using the referral link, you already get a $10 credit, so you don't actually have to add any money, but I'm not positive on that. But anyway, you go to your billing tab, you set up some billing, you add some sort of credit, and then once you have it, then you can come in here and you can start loading up servers. The first step before we load up a server there is we want to set up our SSH key, and that was the RSA key that we created in the Putty Gen tool. So you come over here, you go to the SSH keys, and you want to say add a key. And in here, this is where you're going to paste your RSA key that is over here. So you're going to copy that entire thing, paste it in there, and then give it a name. And I like to just give it the same name. I'm going to use this sort of terminology all throughout my naming convention, which is just the coin name underscore and then the masternode number, in case you're running, say 5 or 6 masternodes. So this is the SSH key. Just hit add key, and if you did it right, you got an SSH key added message. So now we can create our server, and to create the server, you hit this plus button, deploy a new server. You choose your continent here, and then you choose a location that is closest to you. I'm just going to leave the New York there. And then under the server type, you want to choose Ubuntu 16.04 64-bit. And for the server size, I'm going to show you to use the $5 a month version. If this $250 a month version is available, you could try that. But I've heard Vultr talk about this as a test bed server, which makes me wonder if they use, if these servers are as stable as just the standard production version servers. It's possible that these testbed servers could maybe go offline more often, or maybe go under maintenance more often. But I also see it says IPv6 only. I've seen different things here, and that kind of tells me that they may not treat this as a production server. So I would to be safe, I'd go with the $5 a month version. If you know what you're doing and you've done this a lot and you want to save some money, just go with the $250. It should work fine. The difference between these really, the important difference is the amount of memory. This one has a 500 megabyte memory, and this has 1 gigabyte of memory. These are both plenty of memory to run this wallet. The bandwidth is different too, but that's just internet download bandwidth, and you're never going to get to these amounts. Well, you may get to those amounts one day if you have huge wallets that download a lot of information. But for the first time users, I just suggest go with the $5 a month version until you know what you're doing, and then you can start playing with the $250 a month version. So choose that. There are some additional features here. You can enable IPv6, you can enable auto backups, and you can enable the DDoS protection. This is kind of expensive, and I don't think you need this. If you had a masternode that generated a lot of money, and there were people out there that were trying to block your masternode from getting rewards, you can enable this. But at this point, this is pretty expendy, and I haven't enabled this yet. I haven't had the need, but I've heard people say that their masternodes get blocked, but I think those are masternodes that make a lot of money, say like $100 a day or something. The one thing you probably do want to do is enable this auto backups. And what that does is it allows you to, they will create backups for you. So if your server crashes for whatever reason and you couldn't boot it back up, you could reload a new server from the backup, and you wouldn't have to go through this process that we're going to do here in a minute of setting up the server. So that would be one option that I would suggest if you wanted to use any of these. I'm not going to do it right now because this is a server I'm just going to destroy here in a few minutes anyway. Once we're done with the video, I just destroy these servers. So that would be the only option I would suggest you would do. Next you want to choose your SSH key, and this is the key we just added, so you select that, and then you want to give your server a name. And I don't know what I just clicked. I think I clicked something goofy. Do that real quick again. I'll try to remember to cut that out of the video, but if I didn't, then just pretend like I didn't do that. So now I'm giving the server a name. And then verify you're creating one server, the $5 a month version. You got a name, you got your SSH key selected. Just hit deploy now. And now we need to wait for this VPS server to boot up. And over here there's a status. So I'm just going to sort of sit back, and I'm going to fast forward the video during this process. This might take a couple minutes, but just sit back and wait for this to go to a status of ready. So just hold on for a minute. Alright, so the status now has changed to running. That means this server is up and we can connect to it. So what I like to do is I click this sort of white area here just to give you some more information about the server. And it gives you the ability to just click this button to copy the IP address. We'll need that in a second. So the server is up. What we need to do now is set up Putty to connect to that server. So you go to your Putty program, and you want to do the full version of Putty this time. And in here you're going to enter some information. The first piece is the IP address of this host, your server. So just click this button to copy this to your clipboard. And then put that in there. And then you want to come down here under the connection, click the SSH, expand the SSH, and then click auth here. And this gives you the place to put your private key. So this is your RSA private key. So you hit browse. And if you remember, I just saved my private key onto the desktop. So go find your RSA private key you created. It's the private key you created here in the Putty generator. So I saved it on my desktop. That's my private key. So that's in there. Now if I scroll back up here to session, I can save this session, which basically just saves the IP address and the location of that key for me. So I like to save these so I can get to them later. So I just give it the same naming convention I've been using everywhere. And then hit save. And what that does is if you needed to connect to this server in the future, you would just load up Putty, you would highlight the server, and you hit load, and it loads all that configuration for you. And then you can just hit open. And you're going to get this security message. This is a server that I know I'm connecting to is good. If somebody else said, hey, connect to my server, you know, I don't know what would happen. You know, they might be able to push some sort of bad code to you or something, but I trust this because this is a server that I know what it is. So I'm just going to hit yes here. And now we're going to log into the server. And what we want to log in as is root. And this is the username here, but this is not the password we're going to use, so ignore that. But what we want to do is log in as root. And now it's asking you for the passphrase for your RSA key. That's the passphrase we put here onto our private key when we created our RSA private key. It's not this password here. It's the one that we created on our RSA private key. So I'm going to put that password in, hit enter, and then you see it has loaded up and it looks like we are ready to go. This is called the command prompt here. When you see this message here with the green cursor, that means the system is ready for the next input, so you can give it the next command. If you don't see this sort of command prompt here, that means the system is doing something and it's not ready for the next command. But it looks like this is ready, so we can start entering our Linux VPS commands. So down in the comments, you're going to see a bunch of commands down there under this section. So to copy these and paste them into Putty, you don't want to use keyboard shortcuts, not your normal sort of Windows keyboard shortcuts. So if you want to do a copy and paste, you don't use the keyboard shortcut. So to copy from your notepad or however, or copy from the comments below, you know, you just do your normal copy. You can use Control C. But to paste into Putty, what you want to do is right click once. You don't want to do Control V or anything like that, or try to right click and choose an option. You just right click once and it automatically pastes whatever's in the clipboard. So now we pasted that, we just hit the enter key and that will run the command, and we just wait for that next command prompt. There it is. So now we can go to the next command, copy it, right click just once, hit enter. Alright, command prompt is back. We can go to the next command. These ones will be a lot faster. These ones are just short little commands. We're creating a swap file here, which gives your machine a little bit more memory for when we compile the wallet. Because most of these machines we're using, these cheap machines, don't have very much memory or RAM. So this makes a little file that we can use to mimic the RAM for these smaller, cheaper computers we're renting. So just run these one at a time, copy it, right click once to paste. Now this next command is going to be down in the comments section, but in YouTube you can't put these angle brackets, so you might see a little like note saying, hey, replace these characters with angle brackets. So this is what you want the command to look like. So you can, paste whatever you have down on YouTube and then come back here and fix. You can use your keyboard keys, the arrow keys on the keyboard, to move it around, and you can fix it or however you want, but make sure this is what the command is you're running, with these two angle brackets going that direction. So now that created the swap file. Now we're going to install a bunch of prerequisites before we compile. So this one might take a minute or two. So you copy that whole line. It's a big long line. Paste that in there and let it run. If you get any messages saying, are you sure you want to do this? Yes, no, just always hit yes on these. Alright, so it's ready for the next one. Just a couple more commands here. Looks like I didn't copy that one quite right, so make sure you copy it right. And now we are going to get the source files from GitHub to compile that wallet. And now this command here, this make command, this will take quite a while. So what I'm going to do is, if you want, you can look at the time here. I'm going to fast forward the video through this process because it could take quite a while. And then by the time you see when it's done, you can go look at the time again. That'll give you a good estimate of about how long it will take when you're running it. But we're going to run it now, and then it's going to fast forward. So you're going to see it go by really fast, but on your local machine, when you're doing this yourself, it's not going to go that fast. So look at the time here to get a good idea how long this process takes. But I'm going to hit this, and then I'm going to fast forward the video till it's done. Alright, so that has finished creating the wallet, and we're back to our command prompt. So what we can do now is set up the config file. So the wallet is now installed, and we want to set up a config file. And to do that, we're going to run the wallet real quick on the VPS server, and what that will do is create a bunch of, so copy that, right click to paste it, and then hit enter to run it. So what it does when it runs it this first time, you're going to see an error message, and it's just saying, hey, you got some bad info in your config file. That's perfectly fine. All we wanted to do is run it so it created some files for us, and now we're going to go update those config files. So to update the configuration file, we're going to run this command over here called nano. And what nano does is it's just an editor. So this is going to edit the config file. So you right click, paste in there, hit enter, and it brings up the configuration file. The configuration file is empty right now, which is perfectly fine. So what you want to do is come back into the comments section down below, and you're going to copy this entire section here under the digitalmoneybits.config. So you want to copy and paste this into here, so copy that, and then remember, you just right click once in here to paste, and it pasted the entire thing. So now what we want to do is use your arrow keys on your keyboard to go on up to that top section, and we're going to start editing any of these values here in the square brackets. So first we want to put in RPC user, and you don't need to write down this username and password, you just need to give it a username and password. I'm just going to give it something random. You want to use something that is not super simple, but you don't have to remember what this is. You don't need to write it down. It only exists in this file, and it's just a username and password used by the daemon software, so you don't need to know what it is. They do need to be different though, so just make sure these two values are different and they're sufficiently complex that someone's not going to be able to guess them. So you can write, a sentence, your favorite sentence or favorite song lyrics or whatever you want to write in there. So next you arrow down to this entry called MasterNode priv key. And what this is a private key that you're going to use to link up this VPS wallet with your local wallet. That way these two wallets can talk to each other. So to get that value, you're going to come over here into your local wallet, and you're going to go under settings or help debug menu, and then go to this console tab, and you're going to type the following thing. You're going to type MasterNode gen key. And what that will do is generate a private key that only this wallet knows about. So don't share this with anyone. This is a private key for your MasterNode or for your local wallet. But what you want to do is you just want to copy that. So right click and copy like normal. Then come over here and delete this other value and put the cursor where you want to paste it. And then you right click once and it will paste that value. And what that does is it allows, when we set up the local wallet, we're also going to use that value in the configuration file there. So the configuration files in your local wallet and the VPS wallet will have this value. That way they can talk to each other through the network, and no one else can talk to these two wallets, and these wallets won't talk to anyone else. It's sort of just like a link that these two wallets will use to talk to each other over the network. So once you have that value in here, make sure this config file looks like this. This looks good. To save it, the commands for nano are down here, and what we want to do to save is called write out. So you hit control, that's a control, that up arrow or caret, that means control. So hit control O to save, and it says what is the name of the file. Just hit enter because this is the proper name. We've already entered the name when we opened this up. So just hit the enter key on your keyboard. So that saved the 12 lines of the file. Now we want to exit. So you hit Control X, and we exited back out. So now we have the configuration file set up on the VPS server. What we can do is go back to where we were at in our command lines that we were doing. We just did the nano. So now we want to do this change directory command. So right click, paste, enter, and then now we're going to run the wallet again. And this time when we run it, we won't get that error message because we've set up our configuration file and it says the server is starting. And the command prompt isn't showing here. Sometimes the wallets will do this. So if it says server started, you can just hit the enter key again and you'll get back to your command prompt. So right now this wallet is running on the VPS server. Everything looks good. What you can do real quick if you want to check the status of that wallet, down in the comments there's also some commands I have down here that you can check the status of your VPS wallet. So what you can do is run this first one here, get info. If you right click that, copy, then right click once to paste, hit enter. It tells you some information about it. It tells you the block number that this wallet is on, and the number of connections. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that this wallet gets synced up. So you want to make sure that this block number is increasing. So run that command again, and to do that you hit the up arrow on the keyboard, and that just reruns the last command you entered. And you can see now it's on 6208, 6565. So it is downloading the source or the blockchain. So that's good. That's really all we needed to do right then, is we know that this wallet is running and it's synchronizing. Just like when we installed that local wallet and it took a while to synchronize, this one's going to take a minute or two to synchronize also. So right now let's just leave that and let it synchronize, and we're going to move on to the next step, which is configuring your local wallet. So now we're going to configure the local wallet to communicate and connect to that VPS wallet and VPS MasterNode daemon we just set up. So to do that, you're going to open your local wallet. You're going to go to the help debug window. Well, actually I already have that up, so let's just pretend I didn't have that up. So you go to help debug window, and then in here you should still have that gen key value that you entered earlier here on the screen. That's good. So you want to enter one more command, MasterNode outputs. And what this does is now it gives you a transaction ID of your collateral transaction. And that's sort of like a receipt to the network saying, hey, I created this collateral transaction of this amount of coins. It uses the receipt to figure out what the amount of coins is. But it's your receipt to prove to the network that you have the necessary collateral amount of coins on an address. That way when this wallet connects to that masternode, it uses that to tell the rest of the network that, hey, I have a valid masternode. So these are the information we need, is this masternode gen key and outputs. We need this information in another file because we can't get to this screen when we move to the next screen we're about to go to. So what I do is I highlight all this and just copy it, and then I'm going to open a new notepad document. So just go to notepad, and I'm going to paste it in here. That way I can get to it here in a second. So I'll just move this sort of out of the way. So now that we have the values we need, we can go and configure our masternode on our masternodes tab. So you come over here to the masternodes tab, you hit create, and in here you're going to enter some information. The first value is an alias, and this is just a friendly name you're going to use for your masternode. You can choose whatever you want, but what I like to do is just call it MN1, just to keep with our naming convention we were using earlier. The address, this is the IP address and port number of your VPS server, and that you can get from a couple different locations. Probably the easiest location is on the server screen for your Vultr. So if you go to the server screen or Vultr, this is that server we set up, and it gives us that IP address. So you can just hit that to copy it, then go back into your wallet and then paste it there. And then you're going to want to put a port number. So you put the IP address and then a colon, and the port number you want is located down in the comments or under this section where I kind of tell you what all these values are. You'll see that this is the port number 35097. So you want to put that in there. The next value is this priv key. This is that masternode private key. It's that value we used when we did the masternode gen key command. So that is on, it's one of the values we copied. So under masternode gen key, that's the value. So you want to copy that and then paste it in the priv key. And then we have our transaction hash. That's this first value you got when you did the masternode outputs. So you want to copy that thing, and you don't want those double quotes. And put it in there. And then you need this output index, and that's that second value out here when you ran masternode outputs. And it's either going to be a 0 or a 1. In this case, it's a 1. So we'll put the 1 there. So we have all of our values here. The alias, the IP address, which we got from our Vultr instance, And then we have our gen key value and our MasterNode outputs, which we got from these commands. So MasterNode 1, the IP address is the IP address of our VPS. The priv key is this MasterNode gen key value. The transaction hash is that first entry from MasterNode outputs, and the output index is that first value, or the second value we got from MasterNode outputs. So all these data points look good. You can just hit the OK button. So now what we have done is set up the MasterNode in our local wallet. And you don't see it yet. What we need to do is restart this wallet so it loads up that information through the configuration. So go to File, Exit. Give it a few seconds for it to actually close and do some cleanup. Then just open the wallet right back up. And now if you go to your MasterNodes tab, if you don't see the MasterNode there already, you can just hit this update button and that will show it. So before we hit the start button down here, we want to do a double check on our collateral transaction. So if you go to our transactions tab and double check our collateral transaction, make sure it has at least 16 confirmations. So I know this is mine. If you don't know this is yours for sure, you can double click it and check to make sure that transaction is the one where you sent 10,000. So that's the right transaction. You hover over it. We have 23 confirmations. So you need at least 16 to start the MasterNode. So 23 is great. Come over here to the MasterNodes, highlight that row, hit start, unlock wallet first. Yes, I forgot to unlock my wallet. So go into Settings, unlock wallet, hit OK. Now highlight it, hit start, alias MasterNode 1, successfully started MasterNode. And now you can see that this status still says not in MasterNode list. Just hit the update button here, and now you can see it is running. And now what we can do is go back over to our VPS and double check the MasterNode here on the VPS. And to do that, you would go into use the command we have at the very bottom, MasterNode status, copy that, and we'll check it out here. And we have a status of 9. MasterNode restarted remotely, which is perfect. 9 is exactly what you want. 9 means good. So our local wallet says the MasterNode's running. Our VPS wallet says the status is a 9. Then this MasterNode is running, and this is perfect. This is exactly what we want. So now we know that this is running. Before you close this Putty window, I like to make sure that I get a MasterNode reward before I close this Putty window down. So I'm going to leave this Putty window up, for the next day or so until I get our MasterNode reward. Once I've gotten that reward, I'll just hit this X button to close out of the Putty window. Just hit X. It won't turn off your MasterNode or anything. All it does really is close that connection to your VPS. And if you need to connect at a later date, you just go back into Putty. Sort of like what we did before. Go to Putty, highlight your saved session, hit load, and hit open, and it'll open a new session into Putty, or into this server. But I like to leave this Putty window open so I can run a few of these commands if I need to. Like if I want to check the MasterNode status, making sure it still says good, check the get info, just to check, block number or connection count. So like if I'm starting to have issues or I haven't gotten a reward, say in like 24 hours, then you'll want to come over here to your Putty window and run a few of those commands to see sort of what the status is of the MasterNode. And if it looks a little bit goofy, like if you don't see this block number, see this block number is 12511. That's on the VPS server. And on our local wallet, we're on block number 12511. That means they're both on the latest block, well, what we think is the latest block. So, but they're both in sync. This one has 15 connections. And then, you run your MasterNode status. It says status is 9. That's what you want. If all of that looks good and you haven't gotten a reward in, say, 24 hours, then jump on the Discord server and say, hey, how long is it taking right now to get your first MasterNode reward? Because your first reward will take a long time. I don't think it'll take more than 24 hours, but I've seen some coins take up to 24 hours. It just depends how many MasterNodes are on the network. Once you get that first reward, then they'll start coming in a lot quicker. It's just that first one takes a long time. So that's why I like to leave this Putty window open, is so I can run those commands until I've gotten a MasterNode reward. So you would go into your transactions, and once you see a MasterNode reward, then you know you're good, and you can just go over here and hit the X button to close this session. It doesn't stop that MasterNode. All it does is just closes that session into it. So it looks like we're good. We have our MasterNode running on our screen here. Every once in a while you can come in here and hit update, make sure it's still running. I suggest, once a day or, once every couple days. Once it's been running for a long time and you feel good about it, then you don't really have to check it all that often. But I like to check all of my MasterNodes once a day just to make sure that they're still running. Because sometimes, there have been instances where a MasterNode went down for whatever reason, and that's sort of the worst feeling, is saying, hey, when I didn't check it for like a week, so it hasn't been running for a week. But most of these are really stable, and if you just check it once a day, you're probably good to go. So our MasterNode is good, and we are all done. Everything looks great.